So friends, welcome you to this next episode of Kaho webinar. I'm Dr. Vijay Agarwal. I'm the president of Kaho Consortium of Accredited Healthcare Organizations. And we have been bringing from time to time to you national experts to address various issues that have been bothering the medical profession. Friends, this particular webinar has been duly possible because of the support of Innovatio Curis and also Ayushman Bharat. For this webinar, the subject is information security for the healthcare organizations. You will understand that this current pandemic has brought in the importance of digital health like never before. I feel just like what demonetization did for promoting digital monetary transactions, this particular pandemic has brought to focus the need for virtual meetings, digital health, and almost everything happening on the cyber space. And therefore, this is a kind of a area where we were already knowing very little, and suddenly there is I would say, an avalanche of these activities happening in the healthcare. And from time to time, we keep on hearing about things going wrong, or cyber crimes, or data leaks, or attack on our information system. And we very much needed to be educated about it. Innovatio Curis, Colonel Satyendra Verma and Mr. Sachin Gaur have always addressed us and have tried to give us a lot of information about it. But today, through their, I would say, courtesy, we have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Sanjay Bal, who is the Director General of CERT in what we call as the Computer Emergency Response Team of India. This is the national nodal agency for responding to the computer security incidents and functions within the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. He is always on the forefront for all sections about the impending threats and sharing valuable information in this regard. Even today, morning news indicates that he was working till late midnight to issue the advisory on the cyber threats from Pakistan. As we know, he has kindly spared his valuable time for this exclusive interaction with the healthcare. We are extremely grateful to Dr. Sanjay Bal. And we all know about Colonel Satyendra Verma and Mr. Sachin Gaur. They have been permanent, I would say, advisors in the field of cybersecurity. So I'll hand it over to Lieutenant Colonel Satyendra Verma to take this deliberation forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, sir, for the introduction and giving us the opportunity. Before I say anything at all, I had something in my mind I would like to share. Firstly, the situation right now is like war. And I was serving in the army for 23 years, and I have faced and felt similar situations, but nothing like this, what we feel all out every day. I recall Operation Vijay memories when we were traveling in Rajasthan along with all the troops. We were moving to the border. All along, we used to find at the railway station, everybody used to be cheering the soldiers. And frankly, sir, we are all locked down. I really wish I could be standing there and supporting all the healthcare professionals who are really standing by us at this moment. And all of you here, thank you very much to Kaho and IC to give me the opportunity to share my deep gratitude to all the attendees, and please share it the same with all your colleagues. And thank you very much for all the hard work they are doing. Thank you very much. You are the real heroes of this country, and we really value every single effort to save every life. Coming back to the subject, I was mentioning that I'll just share with you the summary of the attendees. So we have the registered hospital owners 13, some top decision makers 22, general managers 3, chief of administration 7, CISOs 2, IT managers 9, and others are 43. We have allowed the others also to participate as listeners, but our main focus of the entire presentation is towards the lot mentioned in the top. I would like to mention here again, sir, that at this time, whenever we speak to anybody, let's talk about cybersecurity. They say, why now? Do you know that where the focus is? Do you know where the whole efforts are going, where all the resources are required? So nobody else better to answer this question of why now except Dr. Sanjay Bahel, who's the DG Certain, and he faces he has the best information and the best perspective view of the landscape of the cyber attacks that have increased during these times. And with this, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Sanjay Bahel to take it on. After you, sir, I'll take just 10 more minutes, and after that we'll have the Q&A sessions. All along, everybody can ask questions and they'll be answered right away in the chat, except the ones which are addressed to the speakers directly. Dr. Sanjay Bahel.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Dr. Agarwal and Lieutenant Colonel Verma. First of all, thanks to all the people who are on this webinar. Big thank you from us for doing a wonderful job. As already mentioned by Dr. Agarwal and Lieutenant Colonel Verma, we are now in extraordinarily challenging times where this COVID-19 global pandemic has overturned and highlighted the fragility in economies, livelihoods, schools, industry, including healthcare. Taking informed, data-driven decisions and making your choices now will have the potential to shape our economy, politics, digital India, culture, and the society. This pandemic is giving rise to a contact-free economy, which is accelerating digital commerce, telemedicine, and automation. It is felt that a vaccine or treatment is not expected very soon and may take some months, thus giving reasons for patients as well as healthcare providers like all of you to move towards virtual interactions. In such a scenario, countries in Asia and Europe are changing their regulations for ease of access to telemedicine. Organizations in the US and Europe have seen an increase in their telemedicine services and registrations of 50% and 200% respectively, while adding thousands of doctors to their network. Huge investments are being made to improve connectivity between patients and virtual health providers. It is also clear that in this virus economy, the attack surface is rapidly expanding. The moment you are going to have patients and virtual health providers, etc., you can imagine the attack surface is rapidly expanding, and all of you are at the center stage of this mega epic, which is unfolding now. Going forward, this would be the new normal. We are probably seeing a trailer of our life in a technology-driven future world. The healthcare organizations are and will be increasingly targeted by malicious cyber actors, cyber criminals, and state-sponsored advanced threat groups are already exploiting the COVID-19 pandemic to attack healthcare networks for both financial as well as strategic gains. For the healthcare sector, cyber attacks are extremely concerning because these attacks can directly threaten the health and safety of patients, in addition to the security of your ICT infrastructure and digital data which is residing in these infrastructures. This sector is an attractive target for malicious cyber actors for two fundamental reasons. One, that it is a rich source of valuable patient data, and number two, its cyber defenses are weak. I want to highlight some of the trends that we are seeing at Certain from the healthcare sector perspective. The threat actors have been using the COVID-19 pandemic as a cyber attack vector for their own notorious gains. They are taking advantage of victims who have increased craving for information about this coronavirus due to fear and uncertainty associated with it, as the outbreak of this disease is progressing worldwide. The cyber attacks are targeting users and organizations. The threat actors are devising new strategies to target victims with scams as well as with malware campaigns. Just to give you some figures, since February 2020, there has been an increase of 4,300% in the global pandemic themed spam. Spam is unsolicited email that you get, and there's an increase of 4,300% in this, as per one of the reports. These actors are also using legitimate corporate branding in the name of COVID-19 to send malware to victims. They are using names of trusted organizations like WHO, government entities, etc., in phishing attacks in order to attain credibility and to lure victims to further open these malicious attachments and then compromise their systems. With regards to phishing and malware, just to give you an example, last week, Google alone blocked 18 million COVID-19 phishing or malware delivery emails per day. So you can imagine how extensive this is. They're also using promotion codes so that you can get onto this and use these promotion codes and get, after that, dupe you. There are malware sitting in the coronavirus maps. COVID-19 is used as a discount code being offered by different hacking groups to promote their malicious malware and exploit tools for financial gain, so that once they get your credentials, they can sell those over the darknet. Trojans are being delivered via Android apps on your phone that lure victims, offering coronavirus safety mask upon installation. The coronavirus tracker app that takes away access of your Android microphone as well as camera once installed, and all this goes into the hands of the attacker. So all these have been observed. As Dr. Agarwal also mentioned about data theft, these attacks on healthcare sector includes malware distribution, sale of compromised credentials and access to healthcare systems, encryption of hospital systems through ransomware and extortion campaigns. So these attack vectors such as spam phishing, spear phishing, which is targeted phishing, in various forms of lowest to highest sophistication has been seen. Just like the coronavirus spreads between humans as we connect with each other, that is, it moves laterally around the population. Similarly, in the online world, the attacker begins by finding one compromised location. Even though your network may be large, it does not take many lateral moves to get from one place to another place. Also, you should note that through social networks and your social network applications, the lateral movement becomes the best tool as an attacker's resource. Various web application attacks have been seen. It's just not defacements, but the attacker can access databases and dump them online either for selling or for embarrassment of the organization. There are also some sort of insider threats that are taking place because these insiders have access to sensitive data, and these malicious insiders may be financially motivated, risk-gruntling, or committing data theft for a competitor. There are supply chain attacks where sophisticated actors are compromising your managed service provider software and third-party service providers to gain access to your servers and your data so that they can have the IPR and espionage purposes. From an advanced persistent threat, what we've seen that one of the large healthcare insurance company was targeted. The attackers used various adversary simulation software designed to execute targeted attacks. And this was over a period of almost 8 to 9 months. We saw evidences of lateral movement via compromise of administrative credentials and also of various remote tools such as remote desktop protocol, and attackers were using network tunnels for secure movement of data from one network to another to siphon out as much as they could. And this was basically targeting your confidential medical data, records, images, etc. We have also seen advanced persistent threat group actors from nation states working in different countries such as China and Pakistan. They've been targeting hospitals, and their modus operandi is spear phishing attacks and installation of custom-made remote Trojans. Again, the motive is healthcare patient data, IPR, whatever research which is happening in some of these hospitals to lay their hands on that. And CERT-In has been alerting and advising hospitals and advised on security and mitigation steps. Some time back, a German firm, Greenbone, published a report regarding vulnerable picture archiving and communication system, that is your PACS server, using DICOM, that is your digital imaging and communications in medicine protocol. And this was basically being targeted. But as per that report, Greenbone had said, we saw about 300 servers in India were vulnerable in February 2020. The primary use or issue was that there are certain ports used by this protocol which are not secure. So anyone can access the data on these servers, which includes your diagnostic images along with your personal identifiable information. The vulnerability can be fixed very easily by restricting access to these servers. That is by changing the configuration, hardening your systems, by using a firewall, accessing this only via virtual private network, etc. The hospitals and diagnostic centers need awareness about this issue. And CERT-In advised the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare for sensitizing healthcare sector organizations. And we sent details to all of them so that they can take appropriate remedial actions. We also saw that a hacker had posted data of 6.8 million records of healthcare, that is patients and doctors, on the dark web and was selling 1 million records at $250 US. This data was suspected to be stolen from an app owner who facilitates online appointments of specialist doctors to the patients. So the patient data such as your mobile phone IMEI number, your name, your email, your username, your password, and phone number were available. And of the doctors, their email, their specialty, their name and phone number was available. I mentioned about ransomware attacks. These days, you are seeing reports of ransomware attacks on pharmaceutical companies, diagnostic labs, and hospitals, which are globally as well as in India. If you remember the WannaCry ransomware, it started with NHS in UK. In ransomware schemes, these attackers hold a hospital or a physician's data hostage until money is paid, interrupting services and putting patients' lives at risk as they impede your ability to provide life-changing and life-saving capabilities. Some of these gangs who are involved with ransomware have now announced that they are shutting shop because they have made more than $2 billion US in these activities. But the others are still wanting to reach those targets, so they are still active. Some of these spear phishing attacks that we are seeing just after the lockdown, that is from since March 24th of last month, the phishing domains based on COVID-19 theme, we saw 3,600 domains. And just to give you an example, these threat actors employed different phishing attacks to steal information and drop additional malware. Now, just to give you those who are from the technical side, the malware families which are related to this COVID-19 are things like Agent Tesla, TrickBot, LockyBot, Emotet, Tricky Mouse, Azurult, Crimson Rat, etc. When you go ahead, there is increasing number of biomedical devices used for critical functions within hospitals and healthcare providers, which is presenting a growing security challenge, because these biomedical devices or medical cyber physical systems are things like implanted device like pacemakers, insulin pumps. They're increasingly connected to networks to allow remote management by physicians to reduce the need for invasive procedures. And these are now, there are indications that these are now being targeted and will be attacked, which could lead to loss of lives. And this is a worrying factor. Also, just to give you some worldwide trends, these healthcare sectors which have been attacked in US, Japan, Italy, Ukraine, Spain, Latin America, South Korea, and Iran. Last month, some of the health departments had their servers really slow down. The information could not be provided because they were experiencing a denial of service attack. In Europe, there was again in March target attack on one of the hospital authorities. There are some new attack methods of hijacking the router's DNS settings so that the browser, web browser, displays fake COVID-19 information as if it is appearing from WHO. So these are things which are ongoing, and we need to be careful about such things. So going forward, if you see, effective cybersecurity is a shared responsibility involving people, processes, and technologies. A lot of it is common sense and being alert. The technology piece is a little bit of technical piece, but people and processes is not the technical part. So addressing these sorts of sophisticated threats requires a broad collaborative approach across a multitude of organizations within the government and private sector. Recently, the Cyber Threat Intelligence League, a group of cyber security volunteers across the globe, joined hands to support the healthcare industry specifically. And since the middle of last month, that is March, the organization members have helped to lawfully take down more than 2,800 cyber criminal assets which are on the internet. These included 17 designed to impersonate government organizations, the United Nations and WHO. Moreover, this organization has identified more than 2,000 vulnerabilities in healthcare institutions in more than 80 countries and has notified these organizations either directly or through appropriate government or industry bodies. Just as in the coronavirus case, it is advocated that all people should wash their hands to remain safe, and also healthcare professionals must wash their hands before and after caring for patients. Similarly, in the digital world, healthcare organizations must practice good cyber hygiene by ensuring that your devices are securely configured, that your network is set up as it is intended to, and that any change doesn't affect you or your patient's security. Simple 10 steps that you can follow are establishing a security culture, protecting your mobile devices, maintaining good computer habits, using a firewall, installing and maintaining antivirus software, planning for the unexpected, so you have a business continuity plan, control access to protected health information, using strong passwords and changing them regularly, limiting the network access, and controlling physical access. In 2017, CERT-In had launched the Cyber Swachhta Kendra. Just like you are looking at Swachh Bharat or cleanliness, So we were looking at cleanliness in the cyberspace for providing detection of malicious programs and providing free tools to remove the same. Because if you see the internet traffic, about more than 50% of it is bot traffic. This Cyber Swachhta Kendra is covering about 94% subscriber base in this country through the ISPs. And we are providing free bot removal tools or malware removal tools, various security tools, security best practices, and information to users to secure their systems or devices while creating cybersecurity awareness amongst them. This center operates in close coordination and collaboration with the internet service providers, product or antivirus companies, and the academia, thereby facilitating a smooth and productive interaction in terms of guidance, communication, and persuasion between the government and the general public. So in case any of you are interested to make sure that your doors and windows are closed or there are no problems, you can get in touch with us. We will be more than willing to help you and get you on board on the Cyber Swachhta Kendra. On a daily basis, you will get alerts that either this door or this window is open and you can take appropriate actions. Apart from that, we have sent out advisories to more than 1,170 odd healthcare professionals detailing best practices for enhancing their securities in terms of security measures for medical devices, measures to secure data, system and user level countermeasures, and security measures for prevention of cyber attacks at perimeter level. So with that, I think I have exhausted my time, but I have tried to give you a lucid idea about what is the threat landscape and how you can take care of safeguarding yourselves and make sure that not only you, but also your patients are safe and secure, and there is trust built between you and your patients while using this digital technologies, because as we move forward, we will be using more and more of telemedicine and technology for providing services in the healthcare sector. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So just taking on from where I left, the big question which I keep getting is why now? Sir has rightfully answered that the number of attacks have increased, and the more and more we see, every day I see this news. Since I'm involved in this subject, my focus is always to look for those news, and more these news are increasing. So in fact, we should ask somebody else why now. I can only say that the answer is right in front of us. Why now? The other aspect to why now is that if you just search the web, you will find that the health data sells like gold on the dark web. And there is a direct correlation between money and crime, which I'll come to in later slides. There's a daily news of data breaches. Hospitals and labs are just to follow soon. It is not. It is just a question of when. And the Personal Data Protection Bill has already been introduced in the Parliament. Time to compliance is very short, and even if we start today, there are a lot of steps which you need to cover and procedures to put in place. So we will reach only if we start today. Hence, that is the reason that we should start. We are having this conversation now. Background, a very quick background. I was in the army for 23 years, and after that, I am in the corporate for 5 years. Last 3 years, I have worked with IC and CAHO to foster information security in health sector. 2016, by chance, a discussion with a very close friend of mine, Sachin, was is also a panelist on the state of affairs in this specific sector. And ever since then, every day we come across some of the other analysis aspect, which just keeps us wondering why we are not doing anything about it. Now, this wonder had turned into curiosity, and then we did our research. We interacted with a lot of people, and we are now pretty much ready with the results to share with everyone. So next 10 minutes, I will only share my analysis and insights that we have got from our journey. And I'll also try to answer that big question that if I was you, what would I do? Of course, it's a very hypothetical question, but if you can just see the answer from your own point of view. It will not be technical at all. One of the biggest concerns whenever we interact with health care organization owners is that this topic is technical. Let my IT manager get back to you. Let my CISO get back to you. but I assure you it is not technical, and I'll keep it as non-technical as possible. So activity for last 4 years, we have conducted training, extensive training online and offline. We've interacted with the owners, IT managers and CISOs. We've conducted cyber audit of major hospitals and found very startling results. We've conducted webinars, events, and of course, some online articles and magazines also we have contributed in this subject. We've also met the important government officials, and only then we have come up with all our results that I'm sharing one by one with you. So quickly, one of the biggest input I get is that kuch sunai nahi de raha hai. You keep telling us that hospitals are insecure, but there is absolute silence. I mean, we don't hear, all we hear is that data breach has happened in US, it has happened in Europe, it has happened in some other country. India ka to kahin news sunai nahi de raha hai. So why are you so worried, and why are you making us so worried? So this is a very, very important part, and I want to address it, that silence is golden and the elephant in the room is invisible. It is sitting right with us and it is invisible. Why? We'll just come to it. So the desire for money is clearly the basic motivation for white collar crime. If you see it from any angle, this is true. And there is no better white collar crime than cyber crime, because you have to just say one person sitting thousands of miles across, he's just moving his fingers and he's doing the crime. So this is a very important part. All crime causation theories agree that both the opportunity and motivation must exist for a crime to occur. And if both of them are existing, then there is no reason for the crime not to exist. This is my point. If money is the answer, then what is the question? If there is a need of money, or the criminals are running after money, if the cyber criminal is in Russia is running after money of and selling the healthcare data of US or Europe, then why India is behind? Can India be behind? No, it is not behind at all, I say. The answer is data. That is where the money will lead you to. And this, of course, is a very good, a crime happens when a likely offender meets a suitable target in absence of a capable guardian. And right now, all our systems are something like an incapable guardian who are not able to understand how to protect ourselves. Intentions are correct, but things are not in place right now. This is our analysis. Now, another way I want to put across to you is that, even if it appears, but 2 plus 2 can never be equal to 2. Okay. If you see on the slide, we have news where Chinese hackers steal 68 lakh records from Indian healthcare site. Okay. Then Chinese hackers are ransacking databases for your healthcare data. And similar, I have tons of such news links I can share with all of you if you want. And also there is another news where they say that patient medical records sell for $1,000 on dark web. And there is a listing of pricing of healthcare in the underground. And it is shocking how easily it is sold and how much data is available. But what I want to say is, when these two news we see, can you infer that there is no action on it? Can we infer? I would say rather not. I would definitely say no. A small example of this would be, when I was in the army and when we were sitting on an ambush, waiting for an infiltrating terrorist to come across. And the scout has been put just some distance ahead of us, just to see whether some of them are coming or not. So the scout alerts you that they have passed this area. And now you are waiting for them to cross your area. And it's 30 minutes have passed. You don't see anybody. So what does it mean? Does it mean that the terrorists have evaporated in the air? No. It clearly means that they've taken some other route and they've gone away from there. There is no other way, because your scout has seen them entering and it is not in front of you. So some analysis and some inferences are very visible. There is no doubt about that. Just because there is silence in the media does not mean it's not happening. That's what I want to say, that 2 plus 2 can never be equal to 2, even if it appears to. So what are your assets? When I say as a hospital owner, what do you want to protect and what do you need to protect? So we always look for client health is most important as a hospital. The brand of the hospital is important. The business is important, and the license is important. Of course, what you need to protect is the data. And the data includes your personal health information data, your hospital IP, your hospital working data, and HR data. This is the data that you have, which you need to protect. Why I wanted to tell you is that I gave you the previous slide is because only when you understand what you have to protect, you will be able to protect. So what get measured only get managed. And this is very important. I just wanted you to make a note that if as hospital owners, do you have visibility to that angle or not? Now the subject is so vast, but so nothing can be covered in 1 hour. But what we'll do is we'll use this principle of 80-20. I'll cover the absolute basics so that I am able to give you the maximum output from this webinar. So quickly, this subject I'm still focused on silence. Everybody has been saying why we don't hear anything. So the type of cyber incidents related to data are 3 part types. First is loud. It's loud in the sense that you definitely come to know that something is happening. So something like a ransomware, you will come to know because you will get a lock screen in front of you. You just cannot overlook it. But the point, it is done as discreetly as possible. And the user is told, only the user is told. It is not tom-tom everywhere else. Only the user knows that something is wrong. And then there is silent. The data breaches are silent. All the tracks leading to the data breach are cleared, and nobody comes to know about it unless you don't have your protective or detective controls in place. Then there is a loud incident in which its only purpose is shaming or embarrassing, mostly done by vigilantes and also can be done by competition. It is as illegal and also punishable. But I will only focus on the top 2. And when the top one happens, it is also silent because only on the user comes to know. Now, what are the vulnerabilities that can make these things happen? Like these 3, data breaches and ransomware. How can these happen? What are the vulnerabilities? So vulnerability, first one is a third party who is outsourced to handle your data, has a leaky process. Not very difficult to understand. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about it. Your HIS and HMS software and the apps that you use, they are compromised. Maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, but they are compromised. It is very much possible that the your employee is looking to make easy money and he has access to your data and he accesses that data and sells it off. It's quite possible. And the IT manager, despite all his good intentions, is unable to detect a hidden malicious code in the system, which is now all these 4 vulnerabilities a hacker will exploit to steal money and steal data and make money. I want all of you, I'm taking 5 more seconds for this slide for you to understand that these are the 4 main parts which can make these things happen to you. And so the third party, your apps and software, your employee, and your IT manager. Okay. Now, let's do a little bit role play to understand this silence that we all keep referring to. It's a silence, it's silence. So third party, so let's see. Third party, will they admit? If there is a data breach, do you expect them to admit it? At best, they will try to rectify as soon as possible. They will fire their employees because of which they happened. They will change the source code. They will do everything. But will they admit? It's just a question for you to think. And what if they don't even know? It is silence there also. They also don't know that this data breach is happening at their end. Same is with the HIS and apps. Will the vendors admit that their apps are leaky or they are compromised? They will, and it's quite possible they also won't know. As an employee, will they make noise or prefer silence? If there is an employee who's an internal threat, will he make noise or will he be silent about it? The IT manager, will he admit that something wrong has happened? You know, even with best intentions, he will not admit, he will try to correct it. Poor person will not just walk into the lion's den and lose his job straight away. And worst situation, what if he also doesn't know? So, and you see it from a hacker's point of view. Why should he make any noise at all? This silence totally suits him. The silence that we feel all around us, it totally suits him. चुपचाप उसका सामान काम बन रहा है, he is making money, the data is going where it's supposed to go, he is making money, everybody is happy. It's a perfect situation for him. It is just that it's not situation for us. Now, in case I still don't have your attention, let's shift our perspective a little bit. So what from now onwards, for next 5 minutes, what we'll do is we'll have 10 self-assessment questions. All of us I will just go through 10 questions. I'll request all the attendees to keep a score, 1 for yes and 0 for no. I'll ask you 10 questions. All right. In the end of it, hopefully, you should be able to get a personal score, and if you can share it in the poll, then all of us, it's an anonymous thing, you can poll it anonymously. All of us will get a general idea about the situation that there is. So first question related to governance. Have you carried out any formal information cyber risk assessment / audit in recent past? Yes or no? Do you have an information / cyber policy in your organization that is well circulated among all employees and other interested parties? When I say in other interested parties, it means your third-party vendors, that you have a policy and even they are aware of that policy. They have to abide by that policy, even although they are they are working somewhere else. Do you have dedicated staff resource to look after, ensure and report to you about the information / cyber status? Then regulatory. Are you aware about the mandatory compliances and penalties proposed in the forthcoming PDPA? I'm sorry about the misspelling, it's 2020. And the Disha Act, and how they will apply to your data handling procedures and processes. Are you aware about the forthcoming regulations on medical devices to be used in India and how it will apply to your organization?
I just want to add one point in this regulatory part.
Yes,
also, are you aware that if there is cyber incident, it is mandatory to report to certain, else there are penal actions?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will add this for the future, and thank you for the input, sir. Actually, sir, it is not really widely put across to people that there is a mandate. Everybody feels that, okay, if we do it, we don't do it.
Because it is there in the IT Act, so.
Yes. Yeah. Next is data handling, data security, and third-party security. Is that if you have outsourced hospital management information system and data processing to a third-party vendor, can you be certain that the software modules used by the HMS and processes used to handle sensitive data by the third-party vendor will not result in any data breach or cyber incident? So the key word are you certain? Because the responsibility lies with you as a hospital owner and a decision maker and a top management. It lies with you and not with them. 7th question is, do you know how the patient and hospital data, your patient and hospital data record is data is stored and processed by your third-party vendor? Does IS and data handling figure prominently in the legal agreements with those third parties? And are the IS claims of the third-party vendor audited or reviewed regularly? This is basically to highlight that do you have a visibility into how your third-party person handles your data, what is his processes, and does he have any kind of a feedback system, and is he also complied or mandated by you in your contract? HR practices. Does your HR department consider issues regarding information / cyber during hiring, retaining, or terminating the employees? Lastly, the important ones is business continuity and brand vulnerability. We all are very worried about the brand. Is there an incident management plan laid out to handle any incidents of data breach or ransomware so that it does not affect the business continuity at your hospital? And have you ever conducted a formal impact analysis resulting from an adversely publicized information / cyber incident in your establishment? Have you done a formal estimate of a negative fallout that such an event will have on the investor trust or the future of your hospital? With this, I end my 10 questions, and I hope you have all marked those questions and answered in the polls. So very quickly, time being less, I will just 2 slides on the PDP bill. It is already in the parliament. It is right now in the JPC. It does a very important job of clearly defining the data principal, data fiduciaries, the significant data fiduciaries, data processors, and data protection officers. In terms of hospitals, in term, I would like to say that data principal is somebody like a patient whose data you will be handling. Data fiduciary and significant data fiduciaries are the bodies which handle the data. In case of hospitals, since they'll be handling large amount of data, they will fall into the category of significant data fiduciaries. And data processors are the processes and systems, softwares and third parties who will be processing the data on your behalf. Data protection officers will be the ones will be hired by you, by the significant data fiduciaries to handle the data as a mandate. Now, every hospital will become a significant data fiduciary whenever this becomes an act. Responsibility of the hospital to take care while collecting, storing, processing, and deleting data as per laid down standards. It is the responsibility of the hospital. Failure to protect data and not follow procedures will attract penalties up to 15 CR. And we will have finally only 18 months for full compliance. Dr. Sanjay sir, in case you want to add something to it, because you are privy to the latest situation, it will be very helpful.
This is fine. I mean, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So important. How do we start? I have told you all the problems, how they exist. Definitely they exist. How do we start? I am a very big fan of starting small, but not stopping. I'm a very big fan as an army guy. I will just give you three points very, very quickly. 3 factors. What are the 3 sources? Insiders, third party, and insecure endpoints. What are the 3 threats? Email phishing attacks, loss of theft of data that includes ransomware, attacks against connected medical device. These are your main threats as hospitals are concerned. 3 best practices that you can start with. It does not mean that they are all, I'm saying just if you have to start today. So educate your employees, establish procedures for access of data, audit and response, and update your software and application. If there are just 3 things you have to do, you have to start with these 3. And the 3 start points, like I told you, organize an honest gap analysis, like an honest audit, a very simple audit. You don't have to go to Big 5 to pay them lakhs and lakhs of rupees they'll come and do a cyber audit for you and you will give you a certificate you can put. No, just go to any honest person or any honest organization, very small, and ask them to just do a very simple audit. And that will be the first step of you to go and measure yourself against a standard. Whatever feedback he will give you, just start implementing the recommended steps and move forward. Create your asset inventory. You have to be very aware where your data resides today. Is it in my hospital, in my server? Is it with the third party vendor? What the hell is he doing with it? Can I take it whenever I want to? What if data breach happens with him? Will he be answerable to it? You have to create that inventory and be understood about it. You have the visibility of that inventory. And establish an InfoSec management structure. This is very, very important. And this is a start point, but it can be done very easily. So very quickly, ransomware, I can assure you, it is a very, very, very easy thing to happen. I'd like to share you, my son is a cybersecurity student in the first year. And yesterday he showed me, he created a ransomware and he did it on my PC. It is so simple. There are ready-made tools which are there. I would strongly recommend all hospital owners to be very, very aware of this situation. But at the same time, it is also the very easiest to prevent. You have to understand the elements, understand how it works, and simple checklists can clear your way. We at KAHO and IC, we will be planning for an extensive hands-on workshop on how to prevent ransomware. If you want, you can be part of it. Otherwise, just tell your IT managers, let him do internet research, let him get educated on his own. In case you need our help, we are always there. What should be the first steps? So first, fully understand the subject as hospital owners. This webinar is a very small part. We cannot be doing everything in this. Conduct a gap analysis, like I mentioned, and understand the different approaches, options with pros and cons. Like you have an in-house dedicated team who looks after security. You have a partially outsourced team or a fully outsourced team. You understand the pros and cons and go ahead with it. KAHO, this is a very small. We share expertise. We will help you identify gaps if you want to. We can help solve problems. And we have a 24/7 help desk also, where all the cyber and data security will be addressed. All the members are welcome for it. Immediate advice on the next steps, guidance on how to resolve the problems, free of cost for the IC and KAHO members. And very soon, WhatsApp numbers will be shared for offline guidance. Thank you very much for your time and your service. Again, we can move to the Q&A part, sir. And Sachin?
There are a lot of questions already, sir. So I let people ask more questions, and maybe all of you can answer those.
No, if you have some curated 3-4 questions which you feel are best for.
There are many questions for Dr. Sanjay Bal, and he has kindly also messaged people.
Okay.
But sir, if you, Dr. Bal, if you may just kindly respond to one of the generic query, which is about CERT-In's role for the health sector. Are you going to share some specific advice in future, or will you consider our request to give some best practices for health sector?
So as I mentioned during my talk, that we have been interacting, and all the examples that I've given have been in the Indian healthcare sector. We have already given advisories and also best practices, as I mentioned, to more than 1,170 plus professionals. So we are very clear about safeguarding and securing the healthcare sector. As I mentioned, that we have also seen more than 300 organizations which were getting impacted because of these health imaging cases. So safeguarding them in the PACS and DICOM protocol. So all these things which I mentioned were all in the Indian healthcare sector. So obviously there is no one hospital which will be similar to the other hospital, or one pharmacy which will be similar to the other pharmacy. Each has a different architecture that they have evolved over a period of time. So accordingly, we can help anyone who, if you're looking at specific hardening guidance, we can give you, when you ask us generic, if it is just say a Windows platform or a Linux platform, generic things can be given. But as I said, some of your platforms like PACS, etc., are very specific. And for those things like ports 104 and 11112 need to be made sure that they are secure, because they are actually insecure, and you have to then make sure that you put firewalls around it, or you change the configuration, or you only access through VPN, etc. So definitely, please feel free to get in touch with us. As I mentioned, reporting incidents is mandatory. CERT's role is for incident response when we see something of this sort, and we have been reaching out to help proactively as well as reactively whenever you have been in trouble, including for ransomware, etc. Right. I hope that answers.
Sure, sir. Thank you. I think there is a follow-up question, and which you also responded in chat, which was about this
Maze ransomware. Yes, we see this is not a generic advisory which we put up in the public domain, because here we have various alerts and various intelligence from multiple sources which we share basically with a limited set of audience with the CISOs of multiple organizations. Okay, so we have reached out to almost 800 plus CISOs, informing them what they should do in case of a Maze ransomware, what could be the indicators of compromise, how they can detect, how they can safeguard. And this is way back in, while you are seeing about this Maze today, we gave all these details way back on the 5th of February. Okay, so more than 2 months in advance.
Dr. Vijay Agarwal, were you saying something?
Yeah. Sachin, I was just saying that we have Dr. Gogia here, Shashi Gogia. He's from the Association of Digital Health India.
Right, sir.
And a very seasoned person in this field. So I have invited him for his comments or question.
Sure, sir.
So Shashi, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vijay, and thank you both, all the speakers. Excellent talk, very, very educative. My basic question was from, because I am a doctor, but I also develop software of my own, more out of this thing, and that's why I wrote my role as an IT manager. My main problem is that, when we look at security, and we're looking at very, very small establishments, it's all okay that you have an IT manager and everything. But most of the day-to-day small hospitals will not afford this, and they will need a lot of help how to manage, and especially with the Disha coming up, saying that the doctor is completely responsible if anything goes wrong. How do we rectify that, and how do you make the back-end solution that if things go wrong, it is more likely because of a bad, and you've already said it, will he admit it? He will not. The vendor will never admit. How do we ensure that the doctor is at least kept safe for things which are being done wrong by other people?
I think the basic thing is, first of all, creation, as mentioned by various speakers also, is creation of awareness. Once the awareness is there, after that, certain things can be handled from a contractual perspective, but the certain things cannot be handled by contractual perspective. So you have to have awareness, you have to have contracts, and after that you have to be vigilant. These are the only three factors that will play an important role to ensure that you are safeguarded.
No, I don't know. That is agreed, but maybe as a CAHO, as a policy, can find out some ways that we ensure that some of the responsibility is highly managed by the vendors.
Dr. Gogia, we will definitely we are taking up this issue along with, we'll take people like you. We are talking to the NESCOM digital health guys, and we'll talk to Innovation Curis, and we will take to the responsible authorities to see that the when they're thinking of fixing responsibilities, it should be on a fair basis. So we will take this. So at the moment, the issue, what Dr. Sanjay Bal and Lieutenant Colonel Verma has said, idea is, first of all, we should not become complacent on this issue, and let us try to at least educate ourselves. Let us try to sensitize people that, and sometimes that fear of action also pushes people to get sensitized. Okay. So
thank you.
So we'll
if you allow me one last question, I want to take before the time ends.
Yes.
Sir, there is a question to Dr. Bal.
Yeah.
Sir, right now, teleconsultation is growing like anything.
Yes.
Right? So any quick advice on that topic, sir?
No, if you visit the certain website, we have given an advisory on how do you safely and securely conduct these sort of video conferences, etc. So teleconferences you have to be aware of the challenges, and you have to make sure that your work continues, but securely. So if you follow the basic guidelines that we have put up, you should be fine.
I have a question that now, at the moment, there is no registry of the telemedicine solution providers in the country, which now at the moment, CAHO, along with Dr. Gogia's organization and Telemedicine Society of India, we have now circulated something to create a registry, number one. And then we want to evaluate the telemedicine solution providers. And one of the naturally angles would be that how secure they are. Yes. Can an organization like Certin help us in evaluating those platforms?
See, we have basically empaneled cybersecurity auditors, and we can start looking at a possibility of how to get them engaged to start evaluating platforms. Or once you've written to us with the details, we can evaluate and look at other options also. So I would encourage you to send us the details.
We'll do that.
And then we can appropriately evaluate.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll also agree to that. Excellent Excellent question, Dr. Vijay, and we will definitely follow it up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Vijay, I think the time has run out, so maybe you can give us some concluding remarks, and we can conclude the webinar.
So, thank you, sir. I think it was one of the very, very educative, and we have no words to thank Dr. Sanjay Bal for really taking out his time and being in this exclusive interaction with the healthcare people. And of course, to our friends, Lieutenant Colonel Satyendra Verma and Sachin Gaur, we are extremely thankful to you for our continuous engagement in this field of cybersecurity. So Thank you all the participants, and we will be once again, I think, continuing this interaction on a more granular basis. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.